Well, first, we're going to start with the invitation to computer science, go over some programming topics, and then the tutorial that's coming up over here is getting started with JavaScript. So much of this we already know. Okay, the idea here, explain why so many programming languages exist. There's 4 key procedural languages, the main purpose for the development of each. Describe the purpose of each special purpose language, SQL, HTML, JavaScript, and R. And describe the alternative paradigms for programming languages, functional, logic, and parallel. Name a functional programming language and a logic programming language. Describe how logic programming languages work and explain what facts, rules, and inference are. Explain how the MIMD model of parallel processing could be used to find a large number in a list. These chapters, should mention, I'm not assigning them, but I'd recommend doing them. Out here, if I go into the Introduction to Computer Science, Schneider, there, finally. Starts in Unit 9, but I believe there's some in Unit 10 also. There's labs out here. And you can write little programs in these languages. So in C++, in Java, Python. So just to get a taste of those different languages, I'd recommend go do some of those labs. You don't have to do all of them unless you just want to. This will give you an idea of the how similar these languages are. And so if you understand the principles, the concepts behind them, then it's just figuring out what does this language have? How does it print to the screen? How do you get input? How do you do an if statement? How do you do a while? How do you do a for? I'm sure there's probably even cheat sheets out there with those basic constructs in the different languages so you can see the format of it. Keep thinking that's what I need to create for myself, so I keep it all straight as I'm going from language to language. Now, I should know my Bible a little bit better than this, but I think the Tower of Babel, if I'm remembering correctly, is something in the Old Testament, something about how everybody spoke the same language, and the Tower of Babel, somehow God spread everybody out and they spoke different languages. They were similar. Yeah, my Old Testament is very weak. I apologize for that. I'm a lot better at the New Testament. Okay, but anyway, that's where the Babel comes from. Why isn't there just one high-level programming language? Why isn't there just one model of automobile? People have different ideas on what a language should be, what it should accomplish. They think theirs is easier, so lots of different reasons. Each language has tasks it performs well. Perhaps it does complex computations on real numbers. Perhaps it does detailed page layout. Perhaps it does database interactions. Um, if I was going to choose, for example, to write an application for the web that's database related, then I'd want to probably use PHP. Cold Fusion isn't around as much, but I think it still exists. And ASP would be good ones for those. So yeah, there's just certain ones that are better for certain tasks. Now that doesn't mean if you go work at a place that they're going to have you using 20 different languages. Um, they'll pick some standard ones they go with, and just because it's makes it very difficult if you do have to support uh, environments that have 20 different languages. Uh, you won't necessarily always program in one language. You know, that's what people think when they come out of college, and that's not true. Went to Koch Industries, and I programmed in COBOL, ALGOL, um, Paradox for Windows, Visual Basic, and I think that was it. So not too many, about four languages there. Um, went to IFR and ended up programming in a package called Delphi. It's kind of Pascal based. Visual Basic for DOS. Um, it's kind of a weird story, but we needed something to run in a DOS environment, and that worked out perfect. Little bit of progress, not too much. Um, I did a little bit in Revelation, Advanced Revelation, but very minimal. Um, Oracle PL SQL, which is a kind of a SQL with which a language component is built in. It's not a full programming language. Um, Paradox for DOS, that was a nightmare. Um, IRL, interactive reader language, just a little bit. Luckily, my boss, she did most of that because that was challenging programming. Um, Probably even some other ones. Some Java. I can't remember what package we used for that Java that we did. ASP, um, Perl. So I guess about never did PHP there. So about 10 languages I can remember. So again, you may have the opportunity to work with a lot of different languages. All of them had their own unique characteristics and why you'd want to use them. That's what it says. Choose a language based on tasks to be done. Choose a language based on its approach to computation, its philosophy. Now, procedural languages, their philosophy tell the computer step by step how to manipulate variables, data, and memory locations. Um, I don't know anything about Romance languages, so I'm not sure what it's referring to. Um, and here's some, there's some old ones. Historical perspective, okay. And intended purpose. That first one, I don't know how you say it, playing cool. Let's see if I think I got a picture of it here somewhere. Um, they claim the first programming language was written by Ada Lovelace, and might be true, but it's nothing like the programming language you'd think now. This is what she came up with. variables acted upon, the nature of the operation. A lot of it is probably manipulating electrical voltages directly. So it was to do math, but she is attributed with that. I don't think that's true. I think they just gave it to her. Person I think who really did the first one. The eyes are bad. Well, they say this is the first high level language. Would you like to program in that? Looks pretty bizarre, doesn't it? And that's the first one they have listed. Somewhere, I think this lady came up with the first real programming language, Grace Hopper. You ever hear of Grace Hopper? No. Um, all these other ones before there, I think just manipulated voltage a little bit. But I think she's the person that really should be given credit for the first programming language. But anyway, you won't find the arithmetic language version 0 out there anymore. When I say first programming language, anything that is worthwhile you can actually do something with. There's Fortran, that's an old one that was used for engineering applications, and I have no clue what Plain Cool was used for. COBOL was for business. Really didn't do financial or really didn't do engineering applications. C was pretty good at engineering type applications. They could do those kind of calculations. Didn't handle business applications very well, if at all. COBOL was the big one for that. C++ was supposed to replace C, and it included objects and tried to put in some garbage collection from memory. C is a very unsecure language. It's what a lot of focus is put on. It's why a lot of people can hack in and do different things. I used to have a book on it. I was going to teach that class, and the computer security some 10 years ago didn't take off, so we never did offer the class. But the whole book was revolved around how do you take C programs and hack in. All different. You'd be shocked to find out all the weaknesses go along with C. And the book we currently use for C actually addresses those. It talks about the security issues, not as much depth as that book, but it had issues. A lot of stuff is still written in C. Ada. I think that was for parallel processing. I haven't written an Ada program in probably 33 years or so. It's not as popular. There never really was a commercial version that was one we could afford. You can't go out there and buy one typically for $100. They ran on high upper end machines. Java, we've already talked about that. That's very popular. Python is easy to program in. Uses libraries real well. Java probably doesn't have the influx of libraries like Python does. C Sharp handles objects fantastic. It's easy to program in. It's C based, and it has all the GUI components to go in Visual Studio. And .NET, I have no clue why they had that there. Perhaps they don't understand what .NET is. The .NET is not a language. It's more of an infrastructure. Visual Basic .NET, C Sharp.NET. Microsoft came up with a way so all the languages could talk together. Because if you wrote a program in C, it could not talk to a program in Java, typically. If you wrote a program in C, it could not talk to a program in COBOL. Now, there are some ways you can get in and do that, but it's very difficult. Microsoft thought about this and said, we want all these languages, at least the Microsoft languages, to talk together easily. So if I'm programming in C Sharp, you're programming in Visual Basic, we can work together and code can go into one project. And that's what the .NET framework was meant for. Okay, here they talk about Plan Kakul, translation formal planning system designed Germany by Konrad Zuse, never implemented. Had the sophisticated concepts presented in the manual been known prior to presented in the manual being known prior to 1972, they may have changed the development of programming languages. Fortran stands for Formula Translating System, developed at IBM by John Backus. First high-level language actually implemented, focus on numerical computation, control structure similar to assembly language, has a go-to like a jump, can create spaghetti code. So that's probably true of anything. You can create spaghetti code in about any language. I think Python you can't. I think it was Python. Somebody asked me the other day, yeah, Python. If you could put a go-to in, I think it was Python, and I went and read, and I couldn't find whether there's any go-to in Python. Go-tos create spaghetti code because they're all over the place. And you can't follow it. I did. I think it's pretty well set. They haven't got them available yet. They say they'll probably have it available on Monday. Yeah, if you're curious where what's going to be offered, I can go ahead and give you the. I don't think it'll change much. I haven't heard it. Let me bring up the right one. I had many proposals to them. They finally liked one of them. I'm glad this is finally settled because I'm tired of wasting my time creating all these proposals. Because it's so many things to balance. Some things are meant for certificates here at Cali. Some things are meant for associates and so forth. Some transfer. So I went out and I researched all the different colleges, what transferred and so forth to where, what's the need for certificates. And they thought we should offer introduction to digital design. So I added that in yesterday. This is yesterday. And a lot of these are set up in a hybrid type format. So they're, instead of being 3 hours a week, they'll be an hour and a half a week. And the focus will be more on the actual programming side in class. So, and then you'll watch the videos or read a book in terms of kind of like all the historical stuff I'm giving you now. I wouldn't be covering that. I'd be focusing just on the programming. So, yeah, like the intro to CS. Intro to digital design is meant specifically for those transferring WSU. That's one of the classes they said that people coming into WSU should have taken. If you don't have that taken, that really puts you at a disadvantage. It can throw your degree planning back like a year and a half, sometimes up to 2 years. And so this isn't something we came up with. They came to us and said, you need to be offering this. So it's not my favorite class, but I'm getting better at it. So I'm actually kind of glad that they're going to put it on a schedule every semester. Because the more I teach it, the better I'll get at it. It's interesting class. 3D game development. Weird as it sounds, I found that transfers WSU. I don't remember what class it goes in as, but when I say all of them transfer to WSU, but it's the difference between transferring as a general elective or something specific as one of their existing classes. A+ applications will be the second part of the A+ essentials. And this doesn't transfer. This is meant to prepare you for the certification for the A+. Assembly language programming. Again, that's one that WSU said we should be offering. That isn't as critical as the introduction to digital design. They still thought it was best to get done at Cali instead of up at WSU. C programming will be offered. ASP.NET programming will be offered. C++. Here's a class on Oracle database, specifically focusing on PL/SQL programming language. Let's see. Android app development 2. That's for people in the current Android app development 1. Java programming. And I think we're at, and I'll have to check on her, but I'm pretty sure we were going to add in Intro to SQL. So I'll check on that, make sure she gets that added. That was the latest thing we talked about late yesterday afternoon. Yeah. I think I told her that time there. Tried to, based upon some of the feedback this semester, take some of the ones that require more programming, that videos really benefit you on, and offer those in this format. The ones that are more, read the chapter, watch a video, answer the questions in a test, we try to push those online. The one that I wasn't quite sure about and was Introduction to Linux. I wasn't sure if that should be online or should be in the classroom. A lot of it's read the book, watch a video, answer questions in a test, but then the scripting goes along with the Linux, regular expressions and so forth. So, but we ended up putting that online. But anyway, that's right. These are focused on these computer security side. And in the spring or in the fall, we're going to have an equal amount for the computer security. The computer security seemed to make more sense to push it to the online portion. Now this is for next spring. This is what I'm proposing, that we offer Microsoft certification classes to prepare you for the MCSA, Microsoft Certified Systems Analyst, or I forget what it stands for, and CCNA, through Cisco. If you're going into networking and so forth, those certifications are gold. And so along the way, you can go through and get a computer science degree, have a Bachelor of Science, Computer Science from Wichita State, and you have somebody that maybe doesn't even have a 2-year degree. If they have these certifications and you have these same 2 people going for a job, if it's a networking job, they'll hire that person with those certifications. Somebody with a computer science degree, they'll say, that's nice, but we can't use you. It'd be kind of like, think of it as a Honda. You got your dealership. One person goes in there and they got this 4-year degree in just general how to work on cars. Versus this other person who's received 2 or 3 certifications specifically on how to work on Honda cars. So they've been cleared by the Honda Institute or school or whatever it is that does those certifications and says, hey, they know what they're doing in a Honda vehicle. Who would Honda hire? The Honda guy, yeah. So that's I've been told over and over from networking people that certifications are gold. So this is a way to give you a chance to do prep classes to prepare you to take those certification tests. So. Now, if you're just going into programming, these certifications probably wouldn't help you at all. Every knowledge is good, I suppose, but they're just not that beneficial. Anyway, that's what all the last week and a half, 2 weeks I've come up with. Is there any questions on any of that? Yes. Yeah, because that's the big one. If you go out there and look, time after time in dice.com, Java is the number one. There's some other ones that are greater than Java. Dice.com. I don't know why my machine's going so slow today. Maybe it's just the internet. $84,000 jobs. If I search for Java. 12,378 jobs out there. If you compare that to assembly language. Sorry, drawing blank. We're also offering assembly language. So 12,000 jobs versus 3 jobs. Which class do you think would be better to take? Java for sure. Yeah. You might say, well, why are you even offering assembly language? 3 jobs, that's what are you preparing people for? This is a degree requirement at WSU. So if you're not going to WSU, I wouldn't take assembly language programming. It's not a bad class. It gives you understanding. Probably if you're going to program in game development, it might help you. If you want to program some of the low-level devices, then that'd help you. But just as a general programmer, it's probably not going to benefit you a whole lot. Now, interestingly enough, they do require assembly language programming at Fort Hays also, because I went out and looked at theirs. I'm trying to figure out how to align Cali's program with WSU and Fort Hays. That's the other thing I've been spending a lot of time with this week, trying to figure out how to get those lined up. Because we're lined up pretty good with Wichita State now, and that's because of Wichita State. But I want to merge the two together and see how the classes for Wichita State can also transfer to Fort Hays. Enough, Java has 12,377 jobs. So 12,000 jobs. JavaScript has about 9,000 jobs. JavaScript is way up there. And that's what we're learning this semester is programming in JavaScript. HTML. 3,600 jobs doesn't mean they will want you to program strictly in HTML. They want you to do other stuff too, but you can see from a skill level set that that's a popular one. CSS, I'm not sure if I've ever looked that up. 2,400 jobs? No, not so much there. SQL, 14,737 jobs. This is why we're going to put more of a focus on doing SQL during the day. And even though it doesn't transfer as directly as a class, transfers as a general elective, SQL is so important in computer science. Probably 80% of what I did in my programming was SQL based. If you think about it, if I'm writing an order application like Amazon.com, well, first off, you have to bring up the products that they can view. Well, those are all stored in a database. So it goes and pulls it from the database, shows it on the screen. I'm adding it to a cart. Now that part probably doesn't have anything to do with the database. hopefully. Um, and as I add things to the cart, then I go to checkout. I go to checkout, I create an account, that stores it into a database. I uh, process my order, that credit card information is going into a database. Um, I click the ship, or place order, and then it goes into another database, a completed order, and then that in process triggers the people that are pulling orders from the stock to go and grab those items so they can prepare it for shipment to you. So that's being done via database. They bring the products up, they scan them, that goes in database. So it reduces the inventory in stock and says, hey, this is in process. Um, they print out the shipping label. For larger companies, they actually have like FedEx machines, UPS machines on site. So they don't go down to the local UPS store. They print off the barcodes right there, and so that's stored in the database. So that UPS, FedEx knows how much to charge them and so forth. I mean, all down the roads, everything's database related. Um, Even in scientific applications, that data is being stored off into a database. So got to the point where I had that memorized what I did to access the database. It's just like, I just could type it and not even think. Did so much of that. Okay. Yeah, but like I say, they're working on it. Trying to figure out where to go on it and so forth. Let me see. Fortran used external libraries, tested special purpose code. So many libraries exist, coders sometimes don't need to write much actual code. I'd be shocked if there's 20 jobs available across the country in Fortran. It's like a dead language. Um, COBOL, you won't find many jobs out there, probably about 200 if I had to guess in dice.com. Doesn't mean there's not a lot of COBOL programmers, but those people who are working those jobs aren't moving because they realize that it's a dying language and they're just maybe trying to get through to retirement. And again, COBOL, like I said, was the first big one. And Grace Hopper was a big one that help start COBOL. And it's focused on business applications, wide use in legacy code, old code still in use, year 2000 issues, the Y2K, you've heard about, required massive updating of old COBOL. C was developed by Dennis Ritchie, focused on system programming, close connection to Unix. A lot of the Unix/Linux utilities you use are written in C. Like if you ever use Linux and you type ls, that's written in C. You can go look at the code for it if you want. Some of it's not very exciting. I don't know if I can download it if I had to be on Linux, but let's see. Linux ls code. Source code, I should have said, but oh well. Um, Does anybody ever use the ls command? I don't know what it stands for. Um, it lists files. And you can go through here and you can see all the code for it. This is the idea behind open source is code is freely out here. You can change it. You can save it as a different name and make whatever changes you want. It would take me a long time to go through and understand this. But this is all written in C. Um, this talks about the high-level languages and so forth. There's high-level language, shields the program from the hardware. So you don't need to worry about the hardware specifics. You do with assembly language. That's not considered a high-level language. So with assembly language, you're interfacing directly with registers and so forth. Now, low-level C construct, you not only have this high-level C language, but then you also have this construct going through here where you can interface directly with the hardware. Although I don't think I've ever done it, you can embed assembly language inside of your C language. So it provides that flexibility. Now, accessing the variable's value and its location. You got an identifier here, the address, and then the value. The number refers to its value. The AND number refers to its memory location. For example, you asked me what's the population of Wellington. I could either tell you the exact amount, that's giving you the value, or I could point to where you need to go look. I'll say, go look at Google, and it'll tell you. That's what a pointer does. Pointer points to where the answer is stored at versus just giving it direct. And that's what they're saying here. Pointer data type contains memory locations. When you're working with C, C++, you work with pointers, and pointers do different things. They're talking about storing a value in a specific memory location using C, and we're not going to go to that depth on here. C is still used quite heavily. It's one of the big ones out in dice.com. Used for a lot of systems programming. Example, device drivers. The reason why it's popular still is because they interact with low-level hardware. A lot of times you need that. C++ was developed by AT&T by Bajarn, if I'm saying his name right. It's a superset of C, object-oriented programming, collections of code libraries. C really didn't do object-oriented programming, so they tried to find a better tool for that. Ada, developed in the 1970s, was multiprocessing, strong object-oriented, safety and reliability, used heavily by Defense Department, transportation industry, financial industry, communications industry. I wouldn't say it's necessarily used heavily by financial industry, but there's definitely those other three I can see. I'm not sure if I've ever looked Ada up for a while. Doesn't mean if it's not out here that there isn't still a lot of jobs in it. Because I don't know how to go look up government jobs. And the military is where it was used heavily at one point in time. $62 jobs. See, this is part of you have to figure out where you want to go work at. And you notice where the places where it's referring to. Yeah, maybe just one. This is a big provider for military, Northrop. So that's why they use Ada. Here's a big one, Java, developed by Sun Microsystems. Was meant for platform independence. You develop a program in one on one machine, you can put it on many different architectures. You can put it on Linux, you can put it on a Mac, you can put it on a Windows 95, Windows NT, anything that has um, there's a Java runtime. Anything that has a Java runtime, you can put it on. It's reliable, secure, doesn't have all those holes that C does. So you can't hack in as easy. Doesn't mean you can't do it. And then graphical user interfaces. And strong integration with web browsers, and it's object-oriented like C++. Except for it does objects better. Objects may be, or Java programs may be applications or something called applets. Small programs that are accessed from the web and executed using Java Web Start. You don't hear as much about applets as you used to, but you can still do them. And portability is the key part. Let's see. Source code compiles a platform-independent bytecode, and then the interpreter translates that to the host machine. So when you compile a program in like NetBeans, the IDE for Java, it puts it in the bytecode, and then that bytecode you can put on a Mac, a Linux, any of those, and the interpreter then runs it. Python was developed by Guido Van Rossum, if I'm saying his name right. Open source, it's freely available. Anyone may suggest changes. Says developed for system administrator tasks and web interfaces. It's used pretty heavily at Google. They're a big user of Python. It's used for a lot of people learning programming because it's easy. It's used as an add-in for Maya, Blender, animation packages for creating like Shrek and the different animations for games and so forth. So it's really kind of growing. Relaxed syntax, easy to use, extensive libraries. That's a big part there. C#, developed by Microsoft. It's successor to C++, but not a superset. It doesn't do everything C++ does. Similar to Java, in terms of security, reliability, integrated into the .NET framework. And again, that .NET is not a programming language. If you go to a job interview and tell them you program in .NET, if they understand anything, they're going to realize you don't know what you're talking about. There is no programming language called .NET. Used to be, you'd hear people talk about that. I would interview people at IFR or sit in on interviews and ask questions. And they'd say they programmed in CGI. And there is no language CGI. It's like whenever they'd say that, you'd look at them like, you really don't know what you're doing. That's why this class is important for the terms. You go out on a job interview. It's a difference between getting a job and somebody looking at you like, boy, you're just clueless as can be. This is an interface. The programming languages go through CGI. They're like, I'm not sure if PHP goes through CGI, but Perl does. Python does. There's a whole slew of them that I'm going through. I think C does. So I got in trouble that one time for creating a C program through my internet provider because I wanted to see if it talked through CGI to a web page. CGI is like where I can enter those items in that web form, and when I click the button, it goes and runs code that's on the server. So your internet provider. And I wanted to see if I could run a C program, and you can interface it through CGI. But they told me pretty quick to take that program down. I assumed it's because they couldn't see the source code, but it could be because C has so many holes in it that if I left it up there, people could hack in easily to Southwind server. So, but yeah, there's a whole slew of them. Same thing with the .NET framework. You have program languages that talk via the .NET framework: C#, Visual Basic, F#. I think C++ is on .NET too. C, there's a whole bunch of them. Iron, Python, I think was one of them. Okay. And they tell you that here. .NET Framework is a Microsoft support framework for many languages. It allows them to talk together. And large collection of code libraries and tools and garbage collection is reclaiming memory for reuse. And that's been a big focus um, of programming languages. Talking about this last night. I was making a comment how working with computers is lots of headaches. Lots of you've already discovered that. Your program's not working. Why is it not working? You have to sit there for hours, maybe trying to figure it out. And I was talking about way back when I was working at IFR 15 years ago. Um, when you run a program like Excel, when it gets done running, it's supposed to give that memory back to Windows. Windows allocates it for that program to run. It says, okay, here's your memory to use Excel. And some of you have heard me say this already. Um, and then when the Excel gets done, it's supposed to give that memory back to Windows and says, here, you can use this now. I'm done. Well, if it's not written correctly, it doesn't release the memory, which means if you're going in and out of Excel all day long, this is 15 years ago, it would keep using more and more RAM until the point that your system became so slow it was almost unusable. We'd receive those phone calls and they'd say, well, as the day's gone on, my computer's got slower and slower. And we knew exactly what the problem was. We'd say, well, just restart the computer and I'll fix it. Because we knew if you restarted it, that it freed up the memory. Okay, that's past history. You've heard me talk about that and so forth. I was reading about the memory leaks that exist in computers. And what application do you think still has memory leaks? Microsoft. Excel. They may have fixed some of it, but there's still the memory leaks in it. So if you go in and out of Excel all day long, it'll keep using up more and more RAM. If you don't have much RAM, that'll slow your computer down to the point where it'll probably even crash at some point. Um, so yeah, here's Microsoft with supposedly the best programmers in the world working there, and they can't even program it correctly. So garbage collection is a big thing in terms of giving them memory back. You know what I thought was also interesting, and I haven't read any further about it to understand it, but they say HP printers do not give back memory. I don't know if that means every time you print to an HP printer that you lose a little bit more of your RAM. That's an interesting thought, though. All I've ever bought at home is HP printers. But I thought that was interesting. That was on the list of items that had memory leaks. Okay. All .NET languages are compiled in the Microsoft Intermediate language. So if I'm programming in C Sharp, when I compile it, it'll put it into this MSIL. MSIL code is compiled by just-in-time compiler, a small program that produces platform-specific object code. And Ada. Yeah, that's right. COBOL runs on it. I taught COBOL some 8 years ago, um, just one time or two times, and then stopped. And it did run in Visual Studio, C++, C Sharp, Microsoft Basic, .NET. So, in case you're wondering why did I teach COBOL? Good times from the past since I programmed it in 3 or 4 years. Used to be one 4-year college here in Kansas that focused their program on COBOL. If you look at how many jobs are available across the entire country, is that really a good thing for them to focus on? No, I'm not even sure why they were doing it, but I was trying to offer classes at Cali that would benefit you no matter what college you're going to. So I offered COBOL, and I realized how stupid that was after I did it. I realized that we shouldn't be focusing on technology from 1960. They've actually moved up, and they, I think, have Java there now. That was Emporia State. Um, they focused on main part was COBOL. I don't know what they're currently doing. This is a good thing to show you how to do. If you're trying to figure out a college to go investigate. Okay. Go investigate the program. See what languages they focus on. Some of them are very generic. They won't tell you up front, and you have to actually call them and check with them. If they're focusing on a language that is not going to really get you much in terms of job opportunities, you probably want to think about going someplace else. Let's see. Online off-campus undergraduate degrees. Must have went somewhere wrong. Somebody ended up in distance education. Computer science. Click here for required courses and electives. Programming, problem solving, algorithms, principles, operating systems, systems programming. See, this might be C. Database concepts, that's what I talk about. They'll focus on database because that's a big part. This is a red flag right here. Why is that a red flag? Yeah. Do they call it Unix anymore? Linux. For a while, I changed the name of it here at Cali to Unix/Linux to try to accommodate the old timers that knew it as Unix and people nowadays that know it as Linux, Ubuntu and so forth. It could be they just haven't updated that. And again, it looks like they're being pretty generic here in what these cover language-wise. Digital electronics, I'm assuming that's probably more like what we covered in Introduction to Digital Design. So it could be that class would benefit you going on to here. This is good. Java programming. They added that on. This used to be their main focus, COBOL programming. But they must have hired some faculty who says this doesn't make any sense. We're preparing people for a job nowhere. It's still part of their grid here. And it looks like it's very heavy in the math. I don't know where you look at the schedule at. What are these? CS classes or IS? CS for their programming and IS for their networking, looks like. So let's see if I can. Besides what's on their degree grid, you should go look at their schedule too to see what they're actually offering. Find a course. How in the world do you search for their site? CS. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing there. Oh, it's down here. Oh, it's one big page. Okay, Control F, CS space. Let's see if I go down there. That's where Java. Okay, so here's IS. Here's their CS classes: programming, problem solving, principles, computer organization, operating systems, computer forensics, data security. Unless I'm looking in the wrong place, would this be a very good place for you to go to, you think? Probably not. They got only 5 computer science courses. Am I reading that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes. And one of them's a practicum, which means you got 4 classes to choose from. And looks like for the most part, they got one professor. And maybe this is an adjunct. Now, on the other hand, and maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. I won't argue that. So I haven't been here in quite a while. It looks like they got a lot in the IS section. So it looks like their focus has been more on a lot of this is revolved around databases, business analytics, database management, big data analytics, business intelligence. So it looks like they've kind of gone away from the standard computer science. They're going more into analyzing big data. And also, it looks like maybe some web applications. And here's data-driven decision making. That's big data. Interesting. Just one telecom. I probably wouldn't go there if I was going to focus on networking. One networking class for spring, that wouldn't be very good. So again, if you try and decide where to go to after Cali, then look through this information, research it, see what it says. If you need me to sit down with you, then you're welcome to come out here, and then I'll go through that with you for college and give you my thoughts on it. I don't have any allegiance to one 4-year college versus another. Used to at one point in time. Pittsburgh State is where I went to got my bachelor's of science in computer science, and I'd always tell everybody to go there. But then they did away with their bachelor's of science in computer science. So I tell people to go there anymore. Okay, special purpose languages, SQL, that's specifically for talking to a database. HTML is specifically for writing web pages. JavaScript, it's for a scripting language for web pages, but it's also a lot more than that. So JavaScript is kind of expanding, growing. R is for statistics. I wouldn't say graphics. It's good for graphs, statistical graphs. I've used R quite a bit. SQL looks like this. Select this name from this table where purchase is greater than 40,000. HTML, you've seen already, like title and /title. So it has tags. There's an example of HTML, which creates this page right here. We've already seen that. So again, your tags listed there, what H1 does, what P does, just a sampling. JavaScript, we've already used a little bit. Code embeds in HTML, enables web pages to react to users. It's a scripting language. It's interpreted, so it's not compiled, which means that in theory, any browser on any architecture can run it, which is popular for what people want. And it's lightweight, reduced features. It has nothing to do with Java. If you're thinking Java and JavaScript are related, they're not. They share some common programming constructs, as most languages do. But JavaScript isn't meant to open up files, for example. Now imagine if it did. You go to a web page, and JavaScript would open up, it'd go through your hard drive and open up any files it wants. How would you feel about that? No, you wouldn't like that, would you? That would open up so many security issues. It wouldn't even be funny. So the design of it was it cannot do damaging things. If you go to a web page, JavaScript cannot save a file onto your computer. Like a rootkit if you're on Linux or something, or can't save an exe on your Windows, putting a virus on there. JavaScript is meant to be safe. Other program languages can't say that. There's let's see. If you go up here to this padlock here, and you go to site settings. You see JavaScript by default is set up to allow, so it'll run JavaScript because it's safe. But notice what it says about Flash. Flash is blocked. With Flash, I think it's now called Animate. It was one of the packages you can write in that. It used to be Flash ActionScript, and I don't even know what programming language is called now. But you could write programs that do a lot of neat things. Unfortunately, it wasn't that safe. You could program a virus with it, so you could have it do something to your computer. And so that's why by default, it's blocked. Anybody know why Flash died? Or why it's dying? That's a big part. And then also they didn't put it on phones. that was the death knell for the for Flash. Now, interestingly enough, some Flash programs you can run, even though it says that. So I couldn't tell you what makes some runnable and some not. If I go to my math lectures here, and I go to college algebra, right? I guess it is blocked. I lied to you. I must have it unblocked at home. See how it comes up and tells me my Adobe Flash player is blocked? That's because this is a Flash program I wrote. Now it looks like you can click this little guy. Click manage. Oh, that takes you just to that page. Yeah, your Flash tester kept to quit. Block sites. Ask first. What if that'll do it? Let me close that. That didn't do it. Let me see. Click this not secure. Go to Flash. I'll say allow. Let me close that. This is my program. You can do fantastic things with Flash. The what? No, it hides your source code, and that's another issue. Yeah, because with JavaScript, you can see the code, so they know, if you're trying to investigate what's going on, you can see it. Here, you have no clue what I did. Maybe I'm writing files to your hard drive. I don't know. But this, I can sit here and it asks me to factor that. I put that in there and click my check answer, and it'll tell me that's correct. If I put something wrong in here, then it'll go through and tell me how to actually factor it. So fantastic what you can do with Flash. It's so powerful, but again, it had those issues I just had mentioned. Could be. In theory, they're supposed to, ask, before they access your information. But, is a hacker going to necessarily just ask? No. Oh, I don't know anything about that. But sharp people out there. These hackers are a lot smarter than me. Yeah. So, I couldn't even begin to some of the ways they hack in. Like if you'd read about those security holes in C, like they'd take an executable in C and they'll tack on like a program on the end and dump it into memory. By doing that, it runs your program, but then it also runs that other executable. And so it'll run and infect your computer. It's like, who in the world would have thought of, these things? And very, very sharp individuals. But yeah, that's Flash. I'm thinking about buying Flash this weekend, signing up for Creative Cloud, that is, because I want to create more ones like that. Because my idea is starting in the spring, I'm going to have unsecure programs. You have to trust me, but I'll have unsecure programs out there that'll guide you step by step how to write a program. Because a lot of people just get stuck. How do I write my first JavaScript program? And they're sitting at home and it's not working and so forth. Now I'm thinking with it's called I believe Animate from Adobe. I can create interfaces like that where I say, okay, now we're going to write our first line. I want you to initialize or to declare a variable. And so then you type that out, and I would check the syntax. And then if you forgot the semicolon at the end, I'd say, okay, it needs a semicolon at the end, and um, kind of a guided tutoring home. I can do the same thing with C Sharp, by the way, but it creates an ASP.NET. Um, but when I did that before, and I couldn't tell you how it happened, but my website, I have when I taught math, about 90% and did 10% computer science. I wrote this program because I wanted to see if I could do it. I went in C Sharp and wrote this application and put it out on my website, Matthews.com. And just for testing, worked perfect. I thought this is fantastic. Maybe I'll really expand create some programs for this. And it was maybe 3 or 4 months later. I was hearing from my students that my website was going really slow. And I contacted Network Solutions, and they said, "Well, you're doing something wrong." It's like that's all they said. It's like, well, what am I doing wrong? All I got is out there is web pages. I never even thought about the or the ASP.NET program I created. And they said, "Well, you're just doing something wrong. Quit doing it." Oh, I was ticked off at them. They weren't helpful at all. I was getting ready to migrate my site to a different provider. I even signed up for an account. I still haven't migrated it because I just don't want to go through the headaches of it. But I still got the other account I use for testing purposes, like different programming languages, like PHP, things like that. And anyway, it was going slow again, and I said I'm gonna um, contact Network Solutions. And turns out the Chinese had hacked into my site. So they were hosting their own Amazon type site from my site. It was like they went to mathheals.com / and then went to this. And I contacted when I was working Network Solutions on that. I asked this person was a lot more helpful. He wasn't just saying you were doing something wrong. But he said, yeah, we oftentimes get hacked by the Chinese. Now I'm very grateful what they were selling on my site. They were selling fake Gucci bags, Nikes. I'm assuming they were fake. So they were selling those items. They could have been like a pedophile ring, putting stuff out of my site, and I'd get the FBI come visiting my door about the the stuff I'm putting out there. So I was very happy that there were fake Gucci's and so forth. I deleted their folder and they no longer hosted off my site. But now, was it a hack from Network Solutions' weak security, or was it a hack because I put the ASP.NET program out there? I don't know. So again, everything has its issues. I guess you can hack into them. But I'll never forget Chinese hacking into me. They must have been doing a big business because I mean they really slowed down my site itself. Um, it's not easy. It's not easy because what they did is my folder names are based upon math. Like technology, college algebra, elementary stats, and so forth. But they created a folder that I think called calculator or something. So I wouldn't think anything about it when I went out and looked. So I don't remember that folder, but then again, I don't access this every day. It's been maybe a year or 2 years since I put anything out there, and so yeah, they name it a folder that looks very similar to the other folders, and you'd have to go into that folder and see all these tons of HTML files. I was still ticked off at Network Solutions because from a hosting provider, I would expect them to have something in place, to monitor this, to make sure I'm not being hacked into. Because they got system resources, they can tell, at what kind of capacity you're being used at, and they do have that service, by the way. They will check that for you. They will keep it clean, but they charge you. And so that's very irritating to me that what I thought should be a standard part of their hosting, I had to pay an extra $15-20 a month. So I wasn't going to pay them a penny for that. So I just go out every now and then, look for weird folders, keep an eye on if it's slow. On your computer, computer would be a lot harder. On the web hosting, all you see out there is like HTML files, um, images, JPEGs, so forth. Um, I don't know how you tell it on your local PC visually. Um, Now your antivirus software that'll compare file signatures, so that if you got this exe for like Excel, it'll compare that against what it should be. They'll run like hash codes on it, and that has a very distinct, unique hash code associated with that Excel.exe. And so they compare that against the hash code that it should be. And if it's not one of the standard ones, they know that somebody's hacked in and giving you an altered version of Excel. Um, have I talked about that in here? Hashing? Um, I don't know if I could find one here. Online hash generator, MD5. Now I'll do this just based upon a string if it'll let me. Use this generator to create an MD hash of a string. Dear mother, hope everything here, hope it's gone well. Love, David. Okay, so you got some kind of text. And it doesn't have to be text like this. It can be an executable, like an excel.exe. If I click generate, this is the unique code, and it's mathematically generated, and I couldn't tell you any more than that, based upon this. There is no other string of characters in that arrangement that will give you that exact same code. Oh, is it? Oh. Hmm. Yeah, I never have looked at it, to be honest. Interesting. Where do you look at it at? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Um, that isn't the hash code they're doing there. What they're doing there is instead of actually putting the characters, maybe let's do this so nobody can figure out what in the world they're doing. But instead of putting characters, like putting A in your web page, you could instead put the equivalent from the ASCII table of A. like instead of putting the uppercase A, I could put ampersand pound 65 semicolon. You put that in your web page, and that would print A when you view it. And you'd have all these weird codes in here. So I'm thinking that's what they're doing. Like I say, I couldn't tell you why. But this right here, you'll see downloads where they put the hash code right beside it. The idea is you download it, you run it through a hash generator, and you make sure that what you downloaded is the same file. With weird characters. Oh, I have no clue why they're doing that. Probably. That's what I find so funny is people are upset about these tariffs and so forth, and I'm not really into politics and so forth. I quit following that. Don't need all the negativity from both political parties. But just the idea of tariffs in general, they worried that people will be able to get their technology, their cell phones. These right here. Are any of these made in the United States? No. Good percentage of them are made over in China, right? And what are our politicians using? Cell phones. It's just like we shouldn't be using them. It's just like jack up that tariff so we create our own cell phones. This has got to be one of the biggest security issues ever. And I know they got secure ones for the president and so forth, which are still produced where? China. So it's ironic when they start talking about that and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, you think about the Chinese, if they design these right, and it talks via the communication network, they could be, like you say, sending whatever back to China. Your top executives, it could be sending whatever information there. Just it's unreal that yeah, yeah, and you might say, well, they're honest, we wouldn't do that, but that they're the big violators of like stealing yeah, the biggest stealers of technology. They're yeah. So I don't understand it. To me, it hurts my head when I think about the logic nature of it. Why people would even our politicians should say we will not buy cell phones from a country that steals our trade secrets. Yeah. It is. It's just like, I could see us doing business with Vietnam. That I don't think I've ever heard of Vietnam stealing our trade secrets like China, Japan. Any of those countries around there. But China's the big. Yeah, money drives it, I guess. Um, Now I don't say anything so important on my phone. I care if the Chinese are listening or not, so I'm fine. But yeah, it's just I don't get it. Okay. This talks about JavaScript is based upon event handler. Like you're checking on mouse out, on mouse over. What that would do on mouse over is like when you move your mouse point the cursor over the button or the image or whatever, it changes. You move it off, and then it does the on mouse out. So you can program a lot of different events based upon JavaScript. Yeah, I'm not gonna look at that because it's too small. R is important in data science, though it's a big debate whether R is better or Python. Both of those using data science. Um, here at Cowley, they're working on a business analytics degree. That's over in the business department. Um, you know, they collect everything. Has anybody downloaded all the information on Facebook before? You got to do it. It'll be an eye opener for you. Um, uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yep. If you download all that information, everything from the beginning of time, it's kept. Every message that you've sent, it'll download. All your pictures. It's worthwhile downloading just to make a backup of all your photos and so forth. But you realize that Facebook knows everything about you. I've sent some pretty stupid messages to my brother, just screwing around with him and so forth. Now I kind of regret that, if anybody, if a law official ever needed to go through that, he'd see these weird things that I've been sending my brother. Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. They say you can tell if it's Photoshop type of deal. No, you can't. Whoever's told you that is wrong. Because if they put enough time and effort into it, they can make it look real. Now, I mean, you have to really put a lot of time into pixel by pixel and understanding the how one color blends into another color to make it look real. But if you have that knowledge, and you can make it whatever you want. Um, Now, I'm not that patient, but I've seen some of the work people have done, and it's just fantastic. The merging of the colors, the gradient type, and yeah, all those different. Yeah. See, and that's doing it at the level where an expert isn't looking at it. That's easy to do. Doing it to the point where an expert can look at the pixel by pixel and tell whether it's been photoshopped. That takes somebody to put a lot of effort into it. Anyway, R is language. It creates graphs like this. R is specifically designed for statistics. I've taught statistics using R for quite a while. Um, it's not very easy. R is a challenging language. It's very simple for the basics, but then you get anything complex and it just really hurts your head. It's not your standard programming. Let's see, alternative programming paradigms. Paradigm is a model or mental framework for thinking about something. You often hear this in, so for this is a good buzzword to use in an interview, by the way. Um, Paradigm is like your old way of thinking. So they love to hear things like that. They say, well, what do you think about the future of, this kind of processing that's going to happen? And you say, well, I think we really need to, as an organization, as a society, break out of our paradigms from the past. That we need to understand what is possible and be willing to change. They love to hear crap like that. Um, so paradigms is a buzzword. That's true. The idea is you don't keep thinking like you did 50 years ago. Emporia State, they finally broke out of their paradigm that they should be teaching COBOL. Um, why do places teach old technology? Even worse than that, laziness. I would love it here at Cali if I just taught you three programming languages that I've known forever. It would make my life so easy. I'd come in and I have no stress, nothing at all. Um, it's stressful learning something new. It's stressful to keep evolving, keep changing. Xcode. Um, it uses a programming language called Swift. It's for developing applications or apps for like an Apple phone and so forth, tablet, the Macs. And every version they come out with changes it dramatically, it seems like. This latest version that came out, I had no clue where the components were stored at. I had to do a lot of reading to find out where they moved it to. Um, in the middle of this semester, they made another change. I had a student download it, and he said that he couldn't find out where they had moved a lot of the different items to. So again, but we need to break out of our paradigms. They're making those changes for improvement, aren't they? So that's why if you're going into computer science, you got to be willing to change. You got to be willing to evolve. Okay. Procedural programming, we talked about detailed instructions, accessing, modifying memory locations. Functional programming, it's a series of transformations on items. And I've never done functional programming, so I couldn't tell you really anything about that. Logic programming paradigm, logic deductions from known facts. Parallel programming, program is made up of multiple copies of the same subtask or multiple subtasks, same problem, performed simultaneously by different processors. This is where we probably should be going, as we have machines that have more than one processor. But it seems like there isn't a real push for that. But that's the concept behind it. To fully take advantage of it is you use all of them at the same time. Functional programming, Lisp. I wrote one program in that some 35 years ago. Scheme I've never used. Organized around functions. Function takes inputs, produces a single value, define functions, call or apply functions, then combine function calls. Oh, yeah, I remember this. This is the format that Lisp was in. This is Scheme, but it has collections like this. I'm going to go over Scheme. Logic programming languages. Programs describe rules and facts, but not how to do something. Um, haven't done anything with those. Besides maybe some basic ones in that introduction to digital design. Prolog was developed in 1972, and that established relationships. I never did understand Prolog. I wrote one program in it back in college. But it allows you to make connections and so forth, show relationships. During President Nixon was the first moon landing. During during Lincoln was the Civil War. During Lincoln was the Gettysburg Address. So it's setting up relationships. Build your knowledge base of facts, run a program, the inference engine, results of the query. I thought this was used for artificial intelligence, but maybe I'm wrong. Example of deductive reasoning using fixed rules. If we know the rule A, if A, then B, and we know A is true, then we deduce B is true. Got your rules and facts coming in, your knowledge base, and then your engine gives you a response. A lot of talk way back when that you could program a computer to think like a human. If you had enough rules and facts coming in here, then you could program it. Driving up here to work, some people tick me off on the road. Why do you think somebody ticks me off? Cut me off? Yeah. It's a 4-lane road, and they'll sit there and they'll pass you, and then they'll pull in real fast. And it's like, why are you pulling in real fast? Why didn't you go down a little bit before you pull in? People follow you real close. Could I program all the different rules in, just thinking my road example, that would tick me off? Yeah. There's a finite number of them. And you could program a computer to do that. Cars within a certain distance of your backside, you get angry. The screen turns red. You go down all of those. If you spend enough time, you could program in all these. This is talking about parallel programming for large-scale computing problems. Again, the idea here is they're working at the same time to accomplish that. Is this becoming pretty popular, multi-core? When you go down to Best Buy? Yeah, a lot more cores, aren't they? What's the standard now on how many cores you get Best Buy? It used to be dual core. What did I go to? Let's try that again. Dual core. They're so busy trying to show me crap that they won't give me what I want. So these are dual core. Is there 8 core ones out there? So I thought they went in powers of 2, but they don't, huh? I haven't read that much about them. Maybe I get away from Best Buy. 8 core processors. Yeah. See, I don't even know what the most common ones are. I guess the i9 or 8 core now. So different ways of programming. We have to break out of our traditional paradigms of the past. Instead of just having one pathway on there, you maybe have multiple ones. So in this case, you have multiple processors on one chip. So how do you write your program to take advantage of all those processors? Does the hardware do it automatically? Probably doesn't, right? So you probably have to have a programming language where you can take advantage of that. Do you need to take advantage of it? If you're writing a simple game, maybe you don't need to have use all those. If you're writing a more complex game, maybe by using all those processors simultaneously, then you can achieve fantastic performance gains. Cluster computing processors may be heterogeneous, connected by LAN or WAN. MIMD example, search for a name in New York phone book. There's 101 processors. Processor 101 handles input output. And then processors 1 to 100 search your data. Does that make sense on what that's saying? You could have one person searching for a name through a New York City phone book. And let's pretend it's not alphabetical. How long would it take that one person to go through that entire phone book? Really long time. If you instead had 100 people and you split that phone book still between those 100 people, it'd still take a long time, but it'd take a lot less, wouldn't it? So again, if you can program this correctly, you could have your, game, I never have programmed this, so this is a theory, but you can have the different processors doing different parts of your game, and you have great speed by doing that. And it's just talking about the new way of thinking on that. Here's a new language up and coming, Go. Have you ever heard of Go? I've downloaded this and I don't understand it yet. Probably need to buy a book on it. It almost seems like DOS based. When I've downloaded Go, it's just like there's no nice GUI interface like IDE, like NetBeans or anything like that. But it was for Google. Combines ease of programming with safety, supports networked and multi-core computing. And that's kind of a big one there. If you want to program for the multi-core, multi-processor, then this might be a language you want to use. Fast compilation, open source. And then Swift is what we're using in that iOS app development class. It's interesting. I was talking with somebody that's going to Fort Hays. Have you been planning on going to Fort Hays? KU for the moment. He said that a lot of his classes at Fort Hays, they're using Swift programming language, using Xcode. So I thought that was interesting. They're not actually developing apps, but I guess a lot of their instructors like the Mac environment. And with the iOS or with Swift, you can develop programs for a Mac. He was complaining, I was talking to him yesterday, he was complaining he'd had to learn Windows for the first time because he took his first computer science class at Fort Hays that was Windows based. He says, I hadn't used Windows in so long, I'm having to really refresh my memory on how to do things. Milk. Yeah, this is a weird one. This is geared toward big data, focuses on using cache memory on multi-core processors to speed up the process accessing data, and speeds up programs 3 to 4 times. Now, I'm not sure if this has actually been released yet. Let's see. Did a presentation where I talked about milk the other day. Why do we need another program like there's so many out there now? Well, because these aren't handling the new hardware. And Teals, where's Teals? Yeah, they're really pushing Milk. That's MIT's new programming language, and again, this says makes code run 4 times faster. But that's the idea. It's taking advantage of the new hardware design. They'll keep coming up with new languages. As somebody's talking about quantum computing, and I'm sure if you're programming in C, you're not going to take advantage of the benefits of quantum computing. So there'll be programming languages come out to aid with that. And you see here's just a list of ones that have come out. Chapel. No, I never heard of that either. Of course, I've never done a parallel processing, so that's why I haven't heard of Julia or any of those. And that's the end of that. You can actually go out there. Wikipedia. List of programming languages. Wikipedia kind of shocked me yesterday, but here's all the programming languages. Well, this isn't all of them. This is just what they have in the list. Python. No way you could learn all of them, can you? So a ton of them out there. Why is Wikipedia bad? Why do people think it's bad? How easy is it to add to it? I added something yesterday. Catholic College probably fired for adding something to Catholic College's. And you'd be shocked. I mean, there's like no verification at all. I expected at least to have to put my email address in there and so forth. And I added something that was grammatically incorrect. I didn't mean to at the time. Let me see. Arkalala. This is in conjunction with Ark City's fall festival called Arkalala, held during the fall break. I put this on here at the end. It says held during the fall break. Let me show you how easy it is to change. It's shocking. Makes you wonder why anybody trusts anything on Wikipedia. And I do. I go to Wikipedia all the time. But if I click edit right here, I'm not logged in. It says your IP address will be publicly visible if you make any edits and so forth. You know, I scroll down here. Try to find out where I changed that. Obviously not there. Let's see. During the, should I say spring break instead of fall break? We change it to spring. I'll change it back. Actually, I'll get rid of it. I'll put it back the way it was to begin with. But I'll just show this to you. Publish changes. And now, I had saved. I'm going to search for it. Spring. Now, Arkalala is held during the spring break. Isn't that shocking that they do not ask for your email address? You do not have to create an account. Yeah. Okay, let me change this back. What was it? They probably could. Yeah, if they were clever enough computer wise. Okay, now it's back to where it was. We won't get fired. But yeah, it's interesting. I just assumed there was some kind of verification of your email address or create an account, get approval. You throw it out there for editing purposes and so forth, but you can put any kind of crap out here you want. So, and really, your IP address, if I go to McDonald's after I leave here, are they going to be able to track who I am? Not in any form. Um, yeah. Anyway, that's probably a good place. We're done with that particular PowerPoint. Take a 10-minute break, and then we'll go into the second one. I'll have to do a shortened version of that. Then I'm going to stop the recording and restart it.